Greetings, loved ones, and welcome back to another Sextember video. For the whole month of September, I am talking about all things love, sex, and relationships, and this is, I think, my 4th or 5th video this month on these kinds of topics, so I will link the playlist on the screen for you guys. I always point over here, but I really think it's over here that I need to be pointing, so frick. Anyways, hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the things that I wish I knew before I had sex for the first time. And just one thing that I want to mention before I get into this video, I feel like I should mention that these videos are, you know, they're not making me money. I'm basically just doing them because I feel like the topic is of interest to you guys and I enjoy doing them. So if you would like to go and support me on Patreon, the link will be the first link in the description. It's patreon.com/Meghan Hughes. If you go and pledge even like $1, I would just be so freaking happy because, you know, not necessarily making it back with these vids. Just a quick reminder there. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into this topic. I asked for you guys to send in things for me to talk about on Instagram, but before I get into those things, I just wanted to kind of share, which I have before, I have shared my losing my virginity experience. What is virginity? I mean, just a concept, truly, but also an experience at the same time. I don't know, I've shared this story before, but I lost my V when I was, I think it was the last night of my 15th year, and it was right before I turned 16. And the whole situation, I wouldn't even say was actually like having sex, you know? It was more of a put it in and then ow, ow, that hurts, oh my God, I'm bleeding on the bed situation. So that's it in summary. It was with somebody who I am still friends with to this day, and he's a great guy. I know that he did not have any malintent from doing that to me, but I did not know that it was going to happen, okay? And that is why we get into the whole conversation now on consent. Woo! Not that I wasn't consenting to having any kind of sexual experience with him, but I did tell him that I was a virgin and that I wasn't necessarily looking for that to happen, and then it still did happen. Granted, we were under the influence as well, so just a lot of messy things, like, all together. It was a messy experience, and we actually, me and him talked about it as well, and he was like, I hope that you had better, you know, sexual experiences than me at that age. And I was like, dude, I have, so it's fine, you know, let's move on from that topic. But yeah, man, so like just a handful of things that I wish that I did differently. I wish that I wasn't under the influence. I do wish that I was a little bit older, and I wish that I was with somebody who I truly, I mean, I had a hard crush on him and it was great, but I do wish that, you know, we loved each other. But, you know, sex, it's like a big thing. People are like, whoa, I want to lose it. It's so important. It's so crazy, all these things. And when it happened to me, like when I lost my virginity, again, I say it in quotes because I'm like, it was an in and out situation and I just bled. So I consider that to be like losing it because that was the first time the male anatomy ever was inside of me. Now let's get into the Instagram stuff that I had sent in to me. A lot of people, instead of asking questions, just decided to send in helpful advice or tips on what they wish they knew before they were sexually active for the first time. And someone said, I wish that I knew as a freshman in college, guys don't want to have sex because they like you. And then I also had somebody send in something that said, I wish I knew that guys are wired differently, so you have to communicate effectively. And when I say communication, I mean communication in sex. Are we dating? Are we just fucking, etc.? And yeah, that's totally a thing that you need to, I guess, be aware of. Like, some people are not looking, just because they are sexually active with you, it doesn't mean that they're equating that to pursuing a relationship with you. And that's why in my last video, I talked about just, you know, like healthy hookup culture and things like that. Like, you can have conscious hookups where you guys are both, you know, having that communication ahead of time to where you're not just like fishing for the relationship to be more, or like having all these unanswered questions. You know, you need to lay down the law with people and explain things to them ahead of time. And that goes in, that's for both situations. Like, if you have questions on what this is, I feel like you should ask them ahead of time, even if it scares them. Just be like, okay, I just want to make sure, like, is this just a casual thing, right? Like, you're not looking to pursue anything further. And I know that sometimes that conversation is scary for people, but it really clears up a lot ahead of time than like playing the whole waiting game, like, does he love me, does he love me not, all this kind of stuff. And that being said, a lot of people have different attachment styles. So, I mean, I feel like it's very cliche to say that women get more attached than men in hetero sex situations, but you know, gender roles and stuff like that aside, people in general just have very different attachment styles, and some people are just very, very sexual and don't have any strings attached and can be very like hanky-panky, willy-nilly, all of the fun terms. And some people are like, no, I did that because I like you and like I want to continue seeing you and doing this. And I feel like me as a person, I definitely had a level of attachment to the person who I lost my virginity to. Virginity, I'm saying that is like a construct, kind of. Like, I'm not saying that there's so much weight in that topic. I got a lot of questions on like explore the idea of like, I don't know, the myth of losing your virginity, like you're losing something when in reality you're gaining an experience. So that's what I mean, is like gaining that sexual experience and like losing your virginity. It's just so easy to say the like regular term that is so normal for people to refer to their first time as or whatever. Anyways, the person I had my first time with, I definitely gained a level of attachment to him for a couple of years after that, and still continued to see him, you know, in and out. We didn't live in the same place, but I don't wish that I did anything differently in that regard. If anything, I wish that he had communicated to me differently how he felt about me after the fact. You know, we did not talk about it until I was 21. So literally like 6 years later. So yeah, just have that open communication for sure. And also I got a ton of questions about like shaving and how to properly shave down there to have that experience. Somebody said both front and back. And I have many a video on growing out my body hair and just body hair in general and what I think about it and how I don't really care that I have hair on my legs and on my armpits and have pubic hair and all those kinds of things. Hair everywhere, don't care, you know? But I think that I cared a lot about that stuff when I first was getting into the whole sexual scene, you know? I was like, he's gonna think it's weird that I have hair down there and all this stuff. When it's like, in reality, now when I think back on those times, I just don't think that I would be with anybody who did care or say anything about that to me. And if they are weirded out by it, then I would just be like, okay, then like we don't have to do this, or like leave. Okay, I closed my door because Finley is home now. But what was I talking about? Body hair. Yeah, I mean, I just, in my case, I would say be with people who don't care about hair down there. Like my partner doesn't, and he genuinely encouraged me to grow out my hair. And I don't think that you should be with people who like make you feel really weird about being human and having hair, especially if they are hairy. Like they should not shit talk you for being hairy. So as for grooming tips, I mean, like shave if you want to or don't. I am very like woo about that, so I don't really care about that. Somebody sent in for me to discuss that it's just normal. It's not a magical experience, although it can be special with good people. And that's kind of what I was talking about before, is like, it's not necessarily going to be this whoa, like fireworks everywhere, oh my god, that was the best experience of my life, you know? But some people do have those experiences where they're with somebody that they love so much or that they trust so much, and they have this really special planned out moment and like, you know, set the scene all romantic and beautiful, and like that can be a really beautiful and special time. It can be whatever level of special to you as you want it to be, basically, is I think what we're both trying to say here. And I also got a lot of questions just about communication and how to communicate to somebody that it is your first time. So in my case, I did communicate that it was my first time, and I was just like, I'm a virgin, you know, and I wasn't necessarily gearing up for that to be my losing my virginity experience. And so I feel like when I think back on ways that I could have communicated that more, I guess if I like stood my ground more and was like, no, I'm really not doing that with you, then maybe it would have been different. But at the same time, okay, this is totally something I needed to talk about, is I never had that talk with my parents. Nobody ever sat me down and was like, men will take advantage of you. Not that it's my parents' fault for not telling me that, but at the same time, I just like never really knew that when I got into situations with people where it was just me and them in the room, like they can manipulate you, or they can do things that you don't necessarily think are going to happen, or whatever it might be. And again, like the person who I had that experience with, I know that he did not have bad intentions. This is why we need to be teaching children about consent and like how to go about those first situations. And if it's not a screaming yes, it's a no. So like, don't try to slip something in, you know? And I did have conversations with him being like, I just want you to know that like, I don't hold any malice towards you for that experience. Although it didn't work out as I imagined it to in my head, like you did technically like take my virginity because you were the first person to ever go up and explore that area in that way. And he was like, oh my God, word, yeah, that did happen. And was like, it was all very blurry. So that's why I just think it's so important to have consent, communication, the 2 C's. Just CC me on everything, okay? But what I was talking about is like how to properly communicate to somebody that it is your first time. I don't know, just being like, hey, so this is my first time doing this. I just want to let you know that. And I just want you to be aware that like, it may be painful for me, but I'm like so down to have this experience with you. So just like go slow with me and, you know, let me know if you're gonna do anything crazy. And I think it's just really establishing that ahead of time is really great for communication throughout the experience. Because if they're like, hey, I want you to lay here, or I'm gonna do this now, you know, ideally, I would hope that it goes that way for you, that the person that you're with is that open to communicate with you. I think it's also really nice to be able to tell people like, show me how to do this thing, because I don't necessarily know how to do it. So being with people that you trust their opinion on how to do things is also good to have. And I had a lot of people send in stuff like, what if I'm afraid that I'm not good? And that being said, like, you are a newbie to this. We don't all go into experiences taking the path of mastery like we've already been on it for forever, you know? Like, you will go into it as a beginner and learn as you go. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be bad or whatever that might mean to you. It just means that you're new and that you're going to need to be shown the ropes or told how they like it. And like, just communicating is, it just solves everything. Just like lay it all out on the table and be like, if there's something you like, speak up, please, because I would love to help you in that way. And vice versa for you. Like if you want something, be like, hey, could you try this on me? Like I really want to know what this feels like if you do X, Y, and Z to me. So just asking. Somebody also said that they wish they knew that orgasms through penetration don't always happen. And I totally wish that I knew that as well. I mean, the first time that I ever had like actual experiences of long and drawn out sex, that experience was very focused on my partner and just like trying to figure out how to please him properly, which is something that I definitely regret. And also when it was happening, I wasn't necessarily like very into it with that specific person. And I just, you know, that wasn't the right partner for me and I shouldn't have been with that person in general. But yeah, I also wish that when we were doing that, I wasn't just anticipating some big moment like that only through penetration, because now I'm so much more familiar with my own body and like clitoral stimulation that really gets me there personally. So that's a #1 tip that I would recommend to people if you're like, I've never had an orgasm because of just penetration. And it's like, I think I've only had one, you know, where it wasn't combined with clitoral stimulation. And that really varies for people. I mean, I know that there's a lot of people out there who love penetrative sex and it totally gets them there and they don't need any other, I don't know, hand movements or whatever on other areas, but you know, you can stimulate other areas to get there. So yeah, I wish I was more like explorative my first actual drawn out time doing it, because again, like she said, not always the best way to get there is just through penetration. And that's why I love to just say over and over again, there's so many other facets to explore other than penetration. You know, you can do oral, you can do like boob stuff and nipple play and play around with bums and fingers and hands and feet and just all of the things. Many people said that they had to learn the hard way that you have to use the bathroom after you have sex. You need to go and pee after sex, otherwise you will get UTI, and it's horrible. And you don't want to get a UTI because they freaking burn, so uncomfortable. Oh, wow. Yes, been there, done that. I also wish that I knew that for sure. I also go to the bathroom before I have sex just to kind of like clean up my areas and make sure that everything is fine and ready to go for having an intimate situation with my partner, which is just kind of a conscious way to go about things. I think that most people should do that. Also, somebody said, say that lube is your friend and not just for anal, ladies and gents. So true. I mean, I feel like the first times that I ever, you know, was in sexual situations, I just was not warmed up enough. Like, I did not have any of the focus on me enough to where I was like really ready to go in those situations. So that is where lube comes into play and can be your best friend. Somebody just said, talk about the blood, man. Like I said, I think 2 videos ago, fluids will occur. And it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is going to bleed when they have their first time or whatever, but I definitely did. And there was just little droplets all over the white sheets, and I was like, oh my God. I kind of heard that this might happen, but I didn't know this would happen now. And oh shit. And then I just went to the bathroom and I cleaned up, and it was a little bit painful down there. And you know, it will be probably a little bit painful your first time having it, but not always. Not everybody's situation is always painful, especially if they've like, you know, been there, done that with themselves, with like toys or fingers or whatever in their own self-pleasure situations. Some people have different experiences where it's very beautiful with other people and not painful at all, and there's no blood or liquids in any shape or form, which is fine, go you know? But yeah, blood is totally something that may occur, and even may occur after your first time. I feel like in the second time that I was ever intimate with somebody, like I also bled afterwards, and that just goes back to the whole, like, I was not warmed up enough. I did not necessarily have like such a drive to be focusing on myself and my own pleasure. So getting there in my head as well as dropping into my body down there wasn't necessarily a thing that I was thinking about, which is so sad, right? Like, why was I focusing so much on him? Somebody said, fake orgasming should not be the norm or shouldn't exist. Gotta speak about our needs. And yeah, totally. I don't think I've ever faked an orgasm, but I am generally pretty loud most times, but not because of any reason other than I'm just an expressive person. And maybe sometimes people mistake that as me having an orgasm when I didn't. But I feel like my partner now like knows, you know? But in the past, I don't feel that way. So yeah, don't feel like you need to perform. A lot of people said to talk about false expectations from the adult industry for women and men. And yeah, the adult industry totally fricks up your perception when it comes to how those situations are going to play out. Because generally, like I was just talking about, like the women are very expressive and very loud, and like there's a lot of talking and like dirty talk that might not be there because the person is not a performer, they're just a person. Unless you are having sex with a performer, then that's cool. But yeah, some people just like aren't very expressive, and a lot of men a lot of the time like don't really have as much noise as women do. I guess that's kind of like a stereotypical thing for me to say, but just based off of my own experiences with men, I feel that way. And whenever I have a partner who is expressive, I'm like, yes, I love that about you, because you love to hear like that they like what you're doing, you know? So again, communication, gotta love it. Somebody suggested that I share how sometimes it can be emotional and sometimes it isn't, and either one is fine. Which is so true. In the situation that you have with somebody, you can totally like get emotional or cry, and like because you're letting somebody in a way that you haven't before if it is your first time. So I definitely think that you should just know that that's totally a possibility, and it's fine to shed a tear, or it's fine to say some words that are like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Like, just yeah, emoting should not be something that people are ashamed about. I also just got so many suggestions about just like the fear of STDs, or the fear of getting a UTI, or the fear of getting pregnant, just a lot of general fear surrounding protection and the possibility of getting an STD or an STI or any of the above. And this is why it's so important to communicate beforehand that you're going to do this, so that you know that you're clean and that your partner is clean and that you've been tested, and have that communication ahead of time if your partner is not, or doesn't even know that they're not, you know? So it all just leads back to getting tested beforehand, and obviously also being conscious, being mindful about your level of protection. If you're not on birth control, then you need to have some form, condoms, or if you're using one of those sponge situations, or if you have an IUD, or if you're getting the depot shot, like whatever situation that you want to get into, you need to research that stuff ahead of time. And I don't think that anybody should be having sex if they aren't aware of, I don't know, sex education and the possibility of conceiving life from sex. Like, that's the reason that it was designed for our bodies. So you obviously have to consider that in mind. So yeah, just having a level of education beforehand is definitely something that you need to have. I got some suggestion from somebody being like, I just was never educated about sex ed in general, like never about the female anatomy, or just never got the sex talk at all. And I was so surprised at how many of you had never gotten the sex talk of like what the birds and the bees are, you know? Like, my parents had that conversation with me when I was 8, and then after that I just kind of like learned everything else from friends and media and all of these kinds of things. But yeah, definitely a conversation that I also want to have with my children in the future is the conversation of not only, hey, this is what sex is and it's like very fine to talk about and you should have this level of communication with your family and your loved ones and be able to like openly ask about these topics, but also you need to know about consent, and you need to know about the possibility of people in general just being able to take advantage of you in certain situations. So you need to know how to fight back, state what you want, like all of these things that are total possibilities. And I just had no idea really that that would ever happen to me until I had a traumatic experience where I did not know how to handle myself and defend myself, you know? And in my next video, I think for the last video of Sextember, I'm going to be talking about sex after trauma. So stay tuned for that one if you have also had an experience like that. But yeah, I mean, if you lacked those talks and stuff, that is the goal of this series, is to give you that level of communication and experience through my eyes, I guess, or my words, and just give you the education that maybe you lacked in the past. To whatever ability I might be able to. Obviously, I'm not a licensed professional or a sexologist or, you know, your healthcare educator. And you should have those people speaking to you about these things as well. Like, you should have a sexual health person that you go see, like a gynecologist. And if you're a dude, you should definitely go and have these kinds of exams and stuff too on your anatomy, just to make sure that everything's running smoothly and fine and whatever. But I realize that some people also have doctor anxiety. So sometimes you just need to hear it from someone else. And looking back on all of these things that people sent in, I definitely think I covered everything that you wanted me to talk about. Just general protection and, you know, shaving and just how your body looks and how people might see you and all of these fears and stuff like that. That all always goes back to just being with somebody that you love and that you trust. And if you don't, you know, if you're not in love with them, at least you know that they're a good person who's not going to sit there and tear you apart while you have this intimate experience with somebody, because it is special and it should be nice to have with somebody in that regard. Or you could just do it to do it, like I kind of did. Things just happen, things occur, and you need to be protected and ready when they are happening. Okay, so that was the aim of this. I hope that it helped. I don't know, I really just talked about a handful of things, and I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about them. Leave me a comment down below about what you wish you knew before you became sexually active, if I missed out on anything. And give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Become a patron of mine if you would like to contribute to my earnings this month or whenever. Again, it will be the first link in the description. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already. Ring the notifications bell if you'd like to be notified when I upload. And until the next upload, stay smiling. Bye guys.
You make it feel so good. Fuck, you make it feel